Hello, I'm Tommie C, and welcome to More Than a Game. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell so you're informed of any of our upcoming streams. If you're a listener to the podcast edition of the show, please send us a review on whatever podcast platform it is that you listen to. We really appreciate the feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. This week on the show, we tune into El Clasico because Fulham v Palace sounded dire. Newcastle Jets doomed. We'll discuss the latest in the club seemingly unravelling before our eyes. How many weeks can I keep West Ham at the top of the run sheet? Find out shortly. George joins us from London to discuss Chelsea's German sports car and what Frank the mechanic needs to do to get it purring again. And Colby also joins us as well to talk us through Liverpool and how they went without Big Verge this week against Damo's Sheffield United. I'm joined by, like I said, Colby and Damo. Gents, how you doing this week?
Damo,
where's Damo, Tommie?
Just got Damo
Damo's watching the NRL Grand Final, boys. taking care of young Percy on the one hand, and work on the other, and football on the other. He's one of the great multitaskers, our Damo. But...
Colby, how are you?
I'm well, mate. He referenced it in the little grab there, Tommie. Liverpool made tough work of Sheffield this morning. We'll get more onto that later, but I'm doing all right. Damo's here as well. He's doing four things at once.
What a man!
Unbelievable.
And George, mate, how are you?
I'm good, boys. I'm good. As I mentioned to you before the show, we're halfway through a 14-day self-isolation period as we were travelling in Italy last week. So can't complain too much given we spent 10 days in Sicily, but doing the hard yards in London here.
After our 6 months pretty much of lockdown, I have zero sympathy for you, George.
Yeah.
George, did you say 10 days, George? Because Instagram made it seem like 20.
Look, I can't confirm or deny what Andy put on his Instagram because I don't want to know.
There's going to be Turn Back Thursdays like every second day. Alrighty, boys. What's caught your attention, Colby?
Oh, this week, Tommie, the Erling Haaland goal against Schalke on the weekend stood out to me.
This was in one of the derbies, isn't it? I can't remember what this one's called.
Yeah, I don't know what this derby's called. Some Coalfields derby or something like that.
It's probably like 30 characters long and it's one word.
I know. Yeah, because I don't follow the Bundesliga. Of course, we're all aware of Haaland and we've all seen his highlights. But I'm not watching him week in, week out. But this little goal, it was a little 1-2 he had with Jadon Sancho. The weight on the pass, by the way, from Sancho was just inch perfect. A little 1-2. Haaland runs into the box, and then he's running full steam at the keeper and just has the class to just dink it over him. It was just an absolutely delicious goal.
Oof. Very nice. I got a goal this week as for my moment of the week as well. So we haven't done that for a little while with using goals as our moment of the week. There's been too much other stuff going on.
Yeah, I know.
George, what about you, mate? What's caught your eye?
Oh, it's a couple of things. We'll probably touch on them today, but Patrick BAMford getting a hat-trick. Yeah, exactly. Is he the top scorer in the Premier League now? He's got to be probably pretty close. So
I think he's one behind Calvert-Lewin.
There you go. So who would have thought Calvert-Lewin and BAMford would be leading the scorers charts in the Premier League? But BAMford actually hitting a hat-trick and a pretty decent one at that for Leeds on Friday night was pretty impressive given, no one thought he could cut the mustard in the Premier League. And he hasn't shown any people thought he couldn't probably cut the mustard in the Championship. So, and he's banging goals in. So it just goes to show, Bielsa's faith is paying off.
How many goals is he going to finish the season with, boys?
Probably five, Colby. Probably 5.
Well, he's on 6, so.
Are you guys? Oh yeah, okay. My bad. Are you guys convinced with him or not?
Well, go Colby.
For me, the jury's still out, mate. I think Tommie, you may have been planning to cover this in the relevant game, but here we are. But the jury's still out for me on BAMford. He could end up being the next Pookie, or he could end up being the next Vardy. We don't know. Both of those guys being, guys that sort of come into the Premier League in their, after their mid-20s.
Late bloomers.
late bloomers, as we like to say. But yeah, it's time will tell which he turns out to be.
Yeah, I think either way, I think everyone's just enjoying the ride at the moment.
I've got a slight theory as well, which I've just come up with on the spot here, boys. It might have to do with some of the lack of crowds. Creating a bit of lack of sort of pressure on him. So because you often saw in the big games he went missing in the past, and the crowd used to get on him. So it might be a thing to watch out for when people come back into stadiums.
And you always hear with those kind of players, don't you, when they're not scoring in the games, like all of their teammates and their coach are just like, yeah, he's banging them in training, and now without the crowds, it's must feel like a bit of a training game out there sometimes, and they can just be free to express themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that expression, people expressing themselves on a football field. I just don't get it.
You gotta let them express themselves. Let the boys play.
Yeah, exactly. All right, boys. Like I said earlier, my moment of the week is a goal as well. This one comes from the Europa League. Sorry, Johnny. It's some more Rangers chat though. And this one's Kamar Roof, who I've got to admit I'd never heard of before. Apparently, I think he used to maybe play in the English lower leagues or something like that. But anyway, he definitely
got a high
showed
ceiling, this player.
Yeah, he well done, Colby. It took me a little while to get that, which it's good because I probably could have just completely missed it altogether. I think on a bad day. But look, Kamar Roof, yeah, he got the ball sort of halfway through, like his own half, and he's dinked past a couple of players, pretty much on the halfway line now, near the touch line, and he's pretty much done a Beckham, and he's chipped the goalkeeper from 45, 50 yards or whatever it is. It was pretty spectacular. And I guess because it wasn't like Beckham, I think, was against Palace back in the 90s when he's received the ball under no pressure. In this one, he's actually under pressure, and he pretty much gets his head up, sees the keeper off his line, and goes bang. But it's an absolute ripper of goal. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend you check it out. Rangers versus Standard Liège in the Europa League.
93rd minute as well, Tommie. So he still had a bit of juice left in the tank.
Yeah, exactly right. Alrighty, boys. That was the good stuff. Now, what haven't you liked this weekend, though, Colby?
Oh, look, boys, I'm gonna stick with BAMford.
Hang on.
We brought him up. My own goal also goes to Patrick BAMford this week for that Z celebration. So I was a bit perplexed when I saw this, and I saw all of the like pre-prepared photos of him flashing up the Z symbol with his hands. And I think a lot of people on Twitter thought this was some kind of a reference to Birmingham City's, like they had some notorious Zulu Warriors hooligan film, and were getting stuck into him for that. And I was sitting here, meanwhile, thinking it was a reference to the early 2000s cult stoner film, Dude, Where's My Car? To the Zoltan cult in that film. But actually, it's a reference to this like eco shoe company called Hilo Athletics, and he's confirmed. Pat BAMford's come out and confirmed it on his Instagram, saying this is the Bolt. So the Z, it's the Bolt. It's a symbol for our planet, a force for nature, and at the center of Hilo Athletics' mission is using sport to inspire positive change, etc., etc. And he goes on for like a full paragraph about this. To be fair, I had a look at it. It looks like a small little startup with a pretty genuine environmental message, but on a scale of commercial project to meaningful social change, it smells a bit more like Tripadil Timmy than school lunches ration to me.
What happened to the old T-shirt under the jersey?
Doesn't cut them up
out
anymore.
The old-fashioned way, fellas.
I was thinking exactly of Tripadil as you were talking about this, so I'm glad that got a mention, Colby. What about you, George? What didn't you like this week?
It's more of a general one, but it started ticking me off during the Champions League game, the Man Utd PSG game, where Keylor Navas saved a penalty and they brought it back because he was an inch off his line. Now, this is like, I understand like the rationale behind the rule, and it's pretty unfair to goalkeepers to be an inch off your line and then have the penalty retaken. Like, is there any way in the world someone's going to miss a penalty now, really, unless like the odds are so much far stacked in the striker's favour. Like you may as well just give him a goal.
It's not a battle at all, is it?
No.
The other thing about that, boys, is they always take it back when the keeper saves it and he's an inch off his line. But what about when he's an inch off his line and it goes in? If I'm the keeper, I'm like, oh,
exactly. If you see him putting it in the top corner, you just charge out, right?
Yeah, that's right.
In NFL, they call that like icing the kicker. George, what were you going to say?
So yeah, it's really pissing me off. Actually, I think that it's really stacked in the favour of the forward. Which okay, because it's a penalty, I understand the rationale behind favouring the team that's earned it. But it's really I'd love to see the odds of penalty misses v penalty scored at the end of this season or something, and how many have been retaken and the like, because yeah, it's really stacked in the striker's favour, and I feel bad for goalkeepers.
Yeah, it's just it's another one of those things that sort of football is evolving. It's something that we're not really enjoying about the new football that we're seeing, is it? Along with along with VAR and the like. Anyway, for me, my own goal this week, I got a few, but I think we'll come back to Newcastle in a little bit. And I'm going to have to use the registration or deregistration of Ozil and Cech as my own goal. So Ozil, it's been well documented that he's having some problems at Arsenal and pretty much can't get a game, and they also can't find him somewhere else to go. And this week they deregistered him from the Premier League, so he's definitely not going to be playing this season for Arsenal, which is a bit sad. Means no one really wins out of that. The club continue to pay mega bucks in wages.
What has he done? What does he
know?
What I mean, if I don't get some, Sal's in the chat. Maybe Sal can let us know. But being an Arsenal fan, but I want to know what he's actually done, because all I can think of in the recent in recent history is his defense of the Uyghur Muslims being persecuted in China. Might have had a falling out with Emery, but then Arteta comes in. Arteta's playing him plays him a couple of times. It looks like he might be coming back into the team, and now he's out again. Is this coming from above Arteta's head?
I almost wondered if it was that they made a promise that he wouldn't be playing, and they've basically called his bluff to say, well, you're not going to be playing, so you need to leave. And he said, well, I'm not leaving. And they said, well, we're going to deregister you then. And he just stuck around. That's what it smells like to me, unless it is, like you say, Colby, that he it is just completely political.
I think it's a political and a money thing as well. It's Arsenal's fault for overpaying him and giving him a whopping contract, which lasts for 4 or 5 years or whatever it did. And he's fallen out of favour with Emery, and he wasn't playing. And then Arteta's giving him a go, and he obviously doesn't fit into the Arteta plan. So they've obviously asked him to leave. He's not going to leave unless he gets a full payout, essentially. So they're sort of at a bit of an impasse.
But I mean, from that perspective, it's a bit similar to what happened with Bale at Real Madrid, right? But
yeah,
and Sanchez at United.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess they found places to go, and I guess maybe the fact that Ozil's always been a bit of a luxury player. He's a sort of a number 10 that sort of strolls around the pitch a little bit, and he's not quite in the same mold as Sanchez or Bale. And it seems like there isn't really a place for him, literally or figuratively, now in football.
Yeah, I think Man U were willing to pay Sanchez that 1 year when he went to Inter. So Real Madrid were almost, Bale stayed an extra season and didn't play a full season. So it's similar. Eventually they're going to have to cut their losses, Arsenal. If they keep, it's ridiculous how they can keep paying him when they clearly don't want him at the club. So they're going to have to.
Sorry, George, from a fan perspective, I mean, just a fan of the game. I'm not an Arsenal fan, but I mean, we all remember what Ozil did to Australia in 2010 and how he was.
I was there. It really made me pretty much cry.
Yeah, for years and years since then, he was regarded as one of the best midfielders pretty much playing. And, even an Özil at whatever age he is now, and however many games he's got in his legs, and however deep his form slump is, like it's just. I mean, I know they're hamstrung by the money, and obviously that's what it is. And there's this impasse that we don't know all the details of, but like, just crazy that someone that good can be not playing football.
I mean, as Sal's just pointed out, he has done something good this season, saving Gunnosaurus. So I think that's worth mentioning. Although he's using money Arsenal paid him to save Gunnosaurus. So it's a bit circular.
That's good. I like that. For listeners at home, Sal said it's above his head. The board have it out for him because he didn't want to leave, but he also blames Kroenke, who I think is the CEO or the owner. I can't remember which one.
Owner.
Yeah. He also says it's because he saved Gunnosaurus, and last but not least, Damo says it's because he's just shit at football.
And just also to the listeners who might be catching this on the podcast version, we're obviously recording this on YouTube live, streaming it. So we've got a live chat going, and we usually post the link to the YouTube live if you ever want to get around the show and get around the chat as well. There's usually at least some action going on there.
Alrighty, that's probably enough Özil chat. Jack also got a bit of a mention as well, because I guess maybe similar energy maybe to Kepa. Maybe we're about to see that rear its head in 12 months' time. But Czech's been re-registered. So Czech can play. I can't remember what status his contract is, but he's basically like he's been. I think he's already a coach at the club, but he's now eligible to play if by chance they're three fit goalkeepers all get injured. So that could be real 2020 energy for three of Chelsea's goalkeepers to get injured, and their goalkeeper coach, a former player, to need to don the jersey again.
Apparently, Tommie's been training the house down. So there's been some footage of him down on the training park, and he's looked pretty impressive. And he's actually younger than Willy Caballero. So there you go.
If you can save a puck, you can save a ball.
Oh dear. All right. Let's move on now, though. I've got a couple of things before we get into the Premier League. First up, I mentioned in the top about Newcastle Jets and how that's just a bit of a mess at the moment. Obviously, last week we discussed about Carl Robinson, how he left the club and has gone to Western Sydney Wanderers. In the aftermath of that, you've had two pretty senior players, Ugarkovic, who's been there for quite a while, and Bernie Abini. Both of them have come out in the last 48 hours and said that they want to leave the club. Ugarkovic has been there for at least 5 years, I think. But Bernie Abini's only been there, I think, for 12 months or less than 12 months. Ugarkovic has said he didn't want to become a part of another rebuild at the club, which, I mean, you can kind of understand that his unwillingness to go through all of that again. But Abini's only just really joined the club, and he said that well, it was Robinson that brought him to the club, and he's the only reason he's there. And if Robinson's not there, he doesn't want to be there. So now in the hours leading up to the pod, the two have actually been released. I don't know if they're going to be joining Western Sydney Wanderers now, or if they'll go to Perth or maybe elsewhere. But obviously, they're two pretty senior players at the Jets that are going to be moving on or have moved on already. So, boys, what are your thoughts about, I guess, the Jets? There's no money there at the moment, and really, I guess it's a pretty dire situation there at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, Tommie, I just think everybody in this situation, like I don't blame anybody who's in this situation. Everybody's acting like exactly as you'd expect them to. Don't blame Ugarkovic and Abini for wanting out. Given the situation at the club and Carl Robinson sort of coming and going. McKenna apparently, before this like breaking news that they've been released, was reportedly digging his heels in, saying, I want to stem the tide of all these players leaving. Don't blame him for trying to at least trying to hold firm to a few of the contracts. And owners, like you said, Tommie, they're just super hard to come by in the A-League, and a large part of that is because like these clubs are just hemorrhaging money. Like, how can you make any money? So I guess that gets you to the place where you say that the one of the biggest things they can do to fix this is just bring in transfer fees. Like the sooner they can do that, the sooner these clubs can start recouping money for players whose contracts they have to breach to move on, and the sooner these clubs can become viable. That's just one of the key sort of pillars to all of that.
Yeah, it's a real shit show, and it reminds me of when Tinkler left the Jets, and the same sort of thing was going on, and they couldn't find someone to take over, and it's just history repeating itself. So
exactly right. Like this is all stemming from the issues, I guess, with the owners at the moment. And that's why Robinson's left. And I mean, like you say, Colby, I think you said it really well, summarised it really well at the top, saying that everyone's acting just as you would really expect. They're all looking after their own interests. And I guess if there's one person besides the fans who I feel most sorry for, and that's Laurie McKenna. I mean, he's been sort of keeping things together there for the last 18 months, and I think doing a pretty solid job. He engages with the fans a hell of a lot and does a pretty solid job, I think, all things considered. But, I mean, it's just tough when you're fighting an uphill battle. In some cases, I guess here, it probably feels like a bit of a losing battle as well.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think I was reading a bit more about it, and it sounds like when the sort of new league, when the transfer to the independent A League, is formalised, and which I think is going to happen in the next couple of months, the clubs will basically stand behind the Jets, and irrespective of what's happening with their owner situation, they're not going to let them collapse. But we'll see what that looks like in the next 6 months, which is basically all the time that the Jets have to organise an owner, and all the time the independent league has to get its shit together, essentially. It's
an interesting off season because you've got the MacArthur Bulls coming in. You've still got the Mariners who haven't been sold. You've now got the Jets in a similar position. You've got the potential of the pandemic as well. So maybe no fans in certain states, or depending on how it all works. And, they're going to be losing even more money. So will be a tough one. It's
not a good time to be trying to attract a new owner, that's for certain.
Yeah.
All right, moving on from the A-League, though. George, I know you and we were paying attention to the El Clasico overnight, Colby. I'm not sure if you watched it or not, but or caught up with the highlights at least. But it was a weird El Clasico. No fans there, obviously.
3 p.m. kickoff as well in Europe. So it was interesting that they put that as their sort of first game on a Saturday.
It's pretty early, isn't it? Normally, they would do quite later kickoffs.
It would normally be a night game. So I think that was odd in terms of scheduling. And the other thing was, Tommie, before you get started, is the age of Barcelona's starting lineup.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that at least you had I think there were three teenagers. So you had Ansu Fati, Serginho Dest, and who's the other one?
Pedri on the wing. So it cast your mind back. I don't know when you would have seen a Clasico game with three teenagers starting. It's pretty incredible.
Well, and then you had Vinicius Junior and Valverde and a couple of other young players for Real Madrid as well, right? So these are very much two teams that are, I guess, doing a bit of a rebuild at the moment, and that it's exciting because I guess we're seeing sort of that next generation of stars sort of rearing their heads as well. I think Rodrigo, he came on as a sub as well for Real Madrid. I'm pretty sure he's still a teenager as well.
Yeah, so. I think he's 19.
But Real Madrid took out this one, was 3-1. It was a pretty close game, I guess, at least in the first half, with Valverde scoring first for Real Madrid, and then Ansu Fati scoring not long after that. It wasn't until after half time that Real Madrid broke the deadlock, though, through a Sergio Ramos penalty, who he actually won himself as well. Boys, you're shaking your head.
Did he bloody ever?
I was going to put this as my own goal, but it was just too obvious.
Yeah,
this was unreal, right? Like he, for those who didn't see the penalty or the highlights of this, I'm pretty sure it was PK that was marking Ramos at a corner, and there's as you would expect, a little bit of argy-bargy, and they're sort of grappling a little bit, and the ball goes over Ramos's head. There's no way he's going to get anywhere near it, I think. And then after that, Ramos throws himself to the ground in the opposite direction of which he'd been previously moving, referee doesn't give the penalty straight away, but gets the heads up in his ear. Go and look at the monitor. Goes and has a look at the monitor, and I'm thinking, oh, this isn't good, but surely he can't give it though.
Yeah.
But yep, true to form, referee gives the yellow card for PK and gives Ramos the penalty.
Just true to form, he drills it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
after he drills it as well, he celebrates like he scored in a World Cup final, goes and knee slides, and then gets up and points to the name on the back of the shirt and just gives it large, as if there's just a huge crowd there as well. It's just the strangest, most cringiest thing you've probably seen all weekend. It should have been an own goal because it was just ridiculous.
There's some people that really like Ramos, right? Because I mean, he's a proven winner, and he's a competitor, and he's a leader, and all that sort of stuff. But moments like this just make him so unlikable for the neutral, I think.
I like him because I think he always seems to do something in a big game and get them over the line. It doesn't matter what. Like, it was 1-1.
No denying that he's a game changer. Yeah,
he's a game changer. But I think
the powers that he uses to do that are sometimes a bit nefarious. He's got big Matt Simon vibes. Like, just put him on and just watch the destruction.
Yeah. But I think ultimately, Tommie, I think we were texting at the time, but like I said, the referee's gone to look at the screen. At least that's good. Like, he'll have some common sense and realize that he was watching the game live, so he knew Ramos was nowhere near the ball. So, he's going to watch it on the screen. It'll reconfirm his original position, which was no penalty. So it was a bit of a bizarre one. And if you've been watching La Liga since the restart, there's at least a penalty every game. Like, and there's always a strange VAR decision every single game. You take it to the bank, there'll be a penalty. So. I wasn't
like pretty much every league, like the A League was like that as well, right?
Yeah, it's more A League than Premier League at the moment, and it's just bizarre. It is just bizarre, and so
something I never thought we'd say about La Liga is that it's more A League areas than Premier League areas right now.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
I did catch up with this game just on the highlights, boys, but the thing that really stood out to me was that Modric goal. I know it was the third goal in the game, but oh my goodness, he's folded up Neto like a deck chair in a strong Adriatic Sea breeze. And
he just kept putting him on his ass, didn't he? And just waiting.
Yeah, he was just waiting. And the man's out here cautious pausing like he's a Dan Andrews presser.
Just like in the limelight. So, boys, on this game, then, who do you think's the best young talent? Who do you think was the best young talent, or is the best young talent, or will be?
I tell you what, like there was plenty of young talent on show, but in terms of the best, what? In terms of the best performance, though, I thought Serginho Dest. I thought he was unreal. Didn't make any mistakes and just. Like, did not look like a player who was playing in his first El Clasico.
Yeah, but he can't do keepy uppies, Tommie. Come on.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. He's a fullback.
I think, as we were talking about earlier, I think it will be interesting when there's, if you bring a full crowd in and see how some of the guys respond in that environment. But I think Ansu Fati's going to be the best, and he's got the next Mbappe written all over him.
Yeah, agree with that, George.
He's got a high ceiling. Indeed.
Yeah. So,
the other thing I thought that sort of stood out for me in this game was, I guess some of the more senior players that they were very much fading lights, not just in the match, and it's really a reminder that some of these players are heading towards sort of the twilight of their career. Probably the biggest one was Busquets. I thought he was pretty poor, and I mean physically he was never particularly quick, but geez, he looks like a player who's pretty much on his last legs, and I'm sure he can probably still do it against, I don't know, the likes of Granada or something like that. But in big games like this, I think the game is maybe starting to move past him, which is, I guess, a little bit sad. But obviously, he's one of the greatest at what he does, but still sad.
Yeah, and De Jong was starting to take over, I think, and really grow into that role. And I will give it up for the one of the original Snakes, Courtois. Just he looks like he's at the moment the world's best goalkeeper, because
he's settled in there, hasn't he? Yeah,
mate. That was exactly what one of the commentators said, that right now they think he is Courtois is the best goalkeeper in the world. And I mean, I'd been on the beers for a couple of hours prior to that already, and I still went, "What?"
Oh no. Well, He was actually huge in their title run when the restart happened. So and then it looks like he's continued on. So it's probably out of him and Kepa in my book.
What, for the world's best?
George,
Yeah.
He's still on the piss from last night as well, mate.
Podcast, George, you're not going to sell Kepa by passing him up on more than a game.
I'm trying my best, Colbs. Trying my best.
Oh, shit. All right, boys, let's kick on. We're half an hour in and we haven't talked any Premier League yet, though, so it's probably time. It's time to finally talk some West Ham. So come on, boys. Look, as I said in the top, I have managed to find another week where we can talk about West Ham first up. West Ham hosted Man City, got a very tidy 1-0, 1-1 result, I should say. I'm just having a shocker this week. Can't use my words. But another point for West Ham in a game where really they wouldn't have expected anything. I think from memory, the West Ham in the last 5 years, the aggregate score is like 21-1 or 21-2 now after last night. So shows you how grim this match has been over the last couple of years. Boys, where should we start with this? Should we start with West Ham or should we start with Man City?
Let's start with the Hammers and give credit to the big man up front, Mikel Antonio. What a finish!
What a goal indeed. Look, he's I think that makes it now. I've got a stat for you. This is 11 goals in his past 13 Premier League games. That's including the 4 against Norwich since Premier League restart. Only Kane has more, and he just keeps on doing the business, which is ridiculous. Like he's made a bit of a fool out of me because I mean I haven't really ever rated Antonio. Like he's good at what he does, but it's such a very narrow slither of actual good things that he does. But he's shown that he can play as a big man up front by himself, and he's doing it extremely well.
He's scoring all different types of goals as well. Like he can get them with his head, he can get them on a running counter, and now he's scoring sort of bicycle kicks or however you want to call that one. So,
boys, we're talking about late bloomers before. Mikel Antonio's 30. Before he's played like sort of 20 to 30 games a season and only scoring in the single digits. Last season he got 10 goals, 3 assists. This season he's got 3 and 6. Is he a bit of a late bloomer?
You know, that's not a bad shout. If there's one other thing that I want to point out, I remember I think it was last week or the week before we were talking about Calvert-Lewin and we're saying how under Koeman he played as a wingback, and I want to point out that Antonio also played as a wingback under Slaven Bilic as well. So maybe that's the secret. If you want to become the next big thing up front for a Premier League club, you've got to play as a wingback before you can start banging in the goals.
Could be.
Yeah. And Damo, just one other parallel there. He cut his teeth in non-league football as well. That's a good one, Damo. So.
Wasn't Harry Kane a fullback at one point? Didn't he? Hasn't he done his time there? A little stint.
Well, he might with Mourinho one game.
Bale certainly did.
Yeah, Bale started out as a fullback, but you have to be worried about him going off with an injury at halftime, Tommie. And I thought that really stunted West Ham's attacks. Yeah,
West Ham really struggled to get out after that, and although City couldn't really, I guess, put them to the sword after that, it was always pretty nervous, I guess, for that final 30 minutes with no Antonio on the field. There was no way out, and I think they put Bowen up front by himself.
They did before Haller came on, which was interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, you had Bowen up front by himself, and then I think they put on Yarmolenko on the right, which just didn't work at all. I think Yarmolenko is going to show his quality later on against maybe some of the lesser teams, but I think against those bigger teams, when you need that mobility and defensive solidity, I think Yarmolenko is not the man for the job at the moment. But look, I guess if the big controversy out of this game seemed to be associated with Antonio's goal and not Antonio's part in it. It was Souček's part in it. boys, this one seems to really have split opinion and genuinely split opinion. I think it's a pretty 50-50 at the moment about whether or not people think this actually was a handball by Souček or not. What's your take on it, Colby?
Not a handball for me.
George, what about you, mate?
I'm really like I don't. It's sort of opening up a can of worms, like going back and looking whether there was a handball in the build-up. So I don't like it, and if it's not obvious, then you've got to give the benefit of the doubt to the attacker.
Yeah, it's a funny one because there's been some instances in the last year. I think there was one with West Ham against, I think it might have been Sheffield United, where there was a late equaliser and it did involve a handball and it got called back by VAR. But in this one, I actually don't think it's a handball, and I think that there were other far bigger refereeing errors that were made or things that were missed in the game, which are nowhere near or are much bigger issues than this one. So Owen Hargreaves in the post match, he was convinced that this was a handball and should have been brought back, and that it's an absolute clanger. And what's VAR for if they're not picking up things like this? But it's a really interesting one, this, because like I said, I'm convinced that it's not a handball, but there's plenty of people out there that are convinced. I think Ian Wright as well, he was convinced that it was a handball as well. I mentioned just prior about how there was a couple of clangers that I think that were missed. Boys, what did you think about Garcia's tackle on Antonio?
I thought that was fine, actually. I thought that was fine. Thought it was all good.
Colby?
Didn't see this one, boys.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
So for the listeners at home, and it's interesting. I think this was probably the big issue in the game. Interesting that George doesn't think it was a penalty, but essentially Antonio's through on goal, and Eric Garcia, the City centre back, he tries to tackle Antonio, slides in, gets a little niggle on the ball, but it's also after, I think, he takes out Antonio's leg. So, he does get like a fine slither of the ball, but not a hell of a lot for me. The other one was, and City are now famous for the tactical foul, and there was one where Declan Rice was running pretty much at halfway with the ball, running at the City defence, and Gundogan pretty much just gets a full handful of his shirt and he's pulling him back. Rice beats the tackle if it was rugby league, and the referee never comes back to book Gundogan. I think it was about 35 minutes in at that point. But yeah, that's one that I think really frustrates a lot of people with City, is that tactical foul, and not just the tactical foul itself. That's hard to watch, but when players aren't getting punished for these tactical fouls, it just makes your blood boil, or at least makes my blood boil.
Fair. They have been punishing him of late, so it was odd that one went without.
Yeah, and like the referee, he did the symbol to show that there was an advantage for the attacking team. Yeah. And it was good that it wasn't called.
Probably saved him because it went on for too long.
Exactly, yeah, and I mean, not long after that, sort of the play did break down, and then City had their own chance to attack, and so there wasn't actually a break in the match for probably 2 or 3 more minutes after that, maybe even a little bit longer. And so I actually just think the referee just forgot to give him a yellow card.
And that's where maybe a video assistant referee can help, but who knows? Who knows if that'll ever work?
You would think so, right? But apparently not.
Shall we get on to City, Tommie?
Yeah, mate, it's probably about that time, huh?
So we've exhausted our West Ham chat for the week.
We went deep in West Ham there, Tommie.
Yeah.
I mean, just lap this up while West Ham are getting results, Tommie. We're not going to indulge you in this much West Ham chat in the future.
Man, I know. I'm well aware.
Just had to put an end to it.
Look, City were pretty poor in that first half, but there was one clear standout player for me in that first half, and it was Cancelo. And he actually turned provider in the second half, setting up Phil Foden, who came on at halftime, and provided City with a way back into the game, an equaliser. Phil Foden, he really changed the game for City though, but obviously being such a young player, he probably didn't quite have the experience to be able to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and really, I guess, make it City's in the second half and allow them to get the win. But boys, what did you think of I guess City's performance in the second half? Maybe that's a better way to keep going.
Well, I felt bad that. Sorry, I just thought.
Go on, George.
Two things. Obviously, I still think they need Aguero there, and him going off with an injury, it changes the way they attack. So they were able to sort of peg back a goal, but I was never confident that they were going to score. And looked like it was one of those Sterling games where he was always getting on the edge of the box and just trying to score, and it never sort of came off. So I think without Aguero, they sort of still lack that focal point up front. Cole?
Yeah. I couldn't agree with that more, George. And Tommie's got a list of City injuries in the notes: Laporte, Ake, Fernandinho, Mendy, Gabby Jesus, and now Aguero with a fresh injury. I mean, we talk about Pep fraud, but just get some players that can stay on the park, and you'll probably be right. And
a lot of those are centre backs, boys. So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to play in the back line for City. Maybe they'll just play attacking midfielders there.
that would be real Pep areas, wouldn't it? Boys, question from Woodsy. He wants to know, can City's title run recover from this poor run of form?
Yes, but it just depends on those injuries as well. But I mean, boys,
I think they're all like short-term.
Yeah, they're not.
Apart from Aguero, and Jesus.
The other thing to just keep in mind, I know people like to get excited early in the season, but with 6 match days in, it's normally sort of after about 10 or so where you really get a good sense of where the table's going. So, the league table can look quite funny before the...
It does look very funny at the moment, Colby. Just look at the top view.
So, I just advise everybody getting excited just to chill out a bit.
And also there was an international break 3 weeks into this, like three or 4 games in or whatever it was. So that probably killed a little bit of the continuity some teams were looking for as well. So
that's true. In fact, I think we talked about it on the pod about how poor the timing was for that international break and how stupid it was. But I think there'd be a lot of people that have...
Yeah, I think it was Jesse had. I think Jesse had a good rant, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it might have been Jesse. Yeah. All right, let's keep moving though. Next up, Aston Villa hosted Leeds. Aston Villa at this point were, if not top of the table, they were second. But look, it didn't all go rosy for Villa. And Leeds pretty much came and spoiled the party. We've already talked about Patrick BAMford or Hatrick BAMford, as he's now known. And boys, what was your pick of the goals?
I think was it the second one where he sort of took it from outside or on the edge of the box, and I think it took a slight nick off one of the defenders, but then he drilled that in, because the first one was a tap in off Rodrigo's across the box shot off and the keeper carried it.
The next one was quite nice as well.
So that was just
was very well taken.
The third one was good, but that second one for me, that had a little bit of Ronaldinho energy about it, with the little swivel of the hips on the edge of the box against Chelsea. And the little backlift.
Calm.
Colby's just got out of his seat for those listening on a podcast.
They don't take Ballon d'Or nominations 6 weeks into the season, boys.
Yeah, I just thought on the game, I just thought Aston Villa just couldn't get Grealish involved enough, really. Like Barkley was trying, and as he does, pegging shots from all around the park, but they just couldn't get the ball in Grealish's feet enough. So I thought that sort of, and there wasn't a moment where I think it was 1-0 or 0-0 where Villa had a massive chance, and I can never pronounce the Leeds goalkeeper's name. Boys, can you help me?
Meslier?
Yeah, that's it. Meslier made a big save, and then Leeds took it down the other end and scored. So, and I think that's
how old is their goalkeeper, by the way? He looks like he's about 15.
Yeah,
barely fills out the goal, and he's just diving around, making all of these really acrobatic saves. He sort of reminds me of that kid, that 16-year-old kid who had like those couple of good games for Wellington Phoenix a couple of years ago. And he was
weird.
like giving.
Wasn't that
he was
Louis
giving
Fenton?
lip to- Oh,
This
no,
is getting
the keeper.
too niche. But
He's
I
got
don't
this
think
16-year-old keeper, and he was giving lip to everyone. This kid looks
Yeah.
exactly like him.
Well, he made a couple of big saves and Leeds got the win. But I don't think Villa were. I think it could have gone either way at that point. And a sneaky deadline day signing for Villa, Bertrand Traore from Lyon. He was
Chelsea,
starting in
right.
Champions League games last year, and he was obviously an ex-Chelsea sort of youth loan one of the loan brigade.
One of the Lone Army.
But he was playing for Lyon in the Champions League last year, and they've got him, and he's sitting on the bench. So I think he'll work his way into their starting lineup. But
Just what?
we're
Talking ex-Chelsea, George. Like Ross Barkley. I know you mentioned him before, but I thought he was supposed to blow up. What happened? I mean, can we not play him 2 games in a row? Is his body just does it stop working after one game? What's going on?
The big problem with Ross Barkley is consistency. So I don't think it's really unusual for him to play 2 games in a row. So
What do you mean? He's consistently inconsistent.
Yes, that's right. Well, Damo's just said Villa were dire, and I think that's a little bit harsh. But I think they just needed to get the ball to Grealish a lot more, and they just couldn't cope in the end with Leeds' press and running.
Yeah, I do wonder if the game turns out differently if Villa do take one of those chances that they had sort of early on. I think they had a couple of decent chances the first sort of 20 or 30 minutes, particularly that one where Grealish pretty much like runs the length of the field.
Yeah.
I think if Villa take one of those chances, I think maybe the mentality is a little bit different, and they're thinking about maintaining a lead rather than I guess that just
Chasing.
really intense battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Boys, is the Villa bubble burst then?
I'm saying no, boys. I'm saying that let's not hit the panic stations just yet. And they're obviously probably still in the top 4 as we speak now, or thereabouts. So I think they're going to be okay.
Colby?
Based on what I've seen so far, I think they'll be okay as well. I know probably most of us picked them to get relegated at the start of the season when we did our preview, but look, I don't think they're going to win the league or even finish in the Champions League spot. But I think it's time to revise our prediction of them going down. That's for sure.
I think we should have just to sort of chop ourselves out. We should have done we did our predictions pre-transfer window closure. So I think
that wouldn't have changed my mind.
Just giving us an out, boys. Far out.
But just before we move on from this game, I just wanted to say a word about young Jamie Shackleton for Leeds. Came on after Bielsa hooked the other defensive midfielder who was filling in for Calvin Phillips. Hooked him after 25 or so minutes, and this young kid, Jamie Shackleton, comes on. Like he must think, I'm not even a shot at getting a game, and does a fantastic job. So
looked very sharp. Looked very
good.
So this is one of those weird moments where, so Jamie Shackleton's a player that I've signed on Football Manager on multiple occasions, and retrained him as like a right fullback. And it's really bizarre because I feel like I have this personal connection with this player, yet I've never ever seen him play before.
You think he was playing that position, Tommie? Well, there you go.
But I tell you what, I thought he had a really good game as well. And my goodness, he gets around the pitch, and I think he's only like 5'5" or something from memory. But geez, he motors. There was a couple of occasions when Leeds were counter-attacking, and like they do get bodies into the box on the end of these counter-attacks, and they're literally sprinting 50, 60 meters, and my goodness, they must just be completely gassed at the end of every game. But anyway, all right. Let's keep moving on, shall we? Next up, Chelsea. George's Chelsea went to Manchester United in what I'm labelling the good vibes, no plan derby. But really it turned into, I guess, the highlightless derby. This wasn't one for the ages, unfortunately. And even Lampard and Ole both conceded that this wasn't a classic. In my opinion, the 2 best chances of the game probably fell to Rashford, and Mendy turned out to be equal to the task on both occasions. Probably 2 saves that Kepa wouldn't have made. Boys, who do you think is happiest with this result? George?
Chelsea.
Yeah, I think Frankel. He's would be inside just loving clean sheets. Like I don't think he's two in a week. It's unbelievable. So again, decent opposition, Sevilla and Man U. So I get that Chelsea did absolutely nothing on the attacking end. Completely get that. That it was.
Were we going to see like 6-3 every game for Chelsea this season, George? What's going on?
We were well. Cast your mind back to last week. It was 3-3 against Southampton. So you get Frank's had
it's
enough.
all or nothing. It's all or nothing.
Frank's
giving you everything.
He's had enough of it. So I think we sort of almost played a back five really, and same as against Sevilla, and the defense looked pretty solid. Thiago Silva. It was Man U, I think, played a little bit into Thiago Silva's hands. It was a bit, and the weather probably helped as well. It was, wasn't the fastest game. We defended deep and Mendy, Thiago Silva, Azpilicueta. It looked very solid at the back, which is not something you'd ever say about Chelsea. So I think Frank would be happier. That's the short answer.
But I guess, does it mean then that there is either like full attack or like full defense for Frank's Chelsea?
At this stage, yes.
Fair enough.
There's no balanced setting.
Yeah.
No balance. No balance.
No middle ground.
No middle ground.
Look, Rory wants to ask, when will Lampard get the sack? Colby, I'll go to you first.
Well, I mean, I'm conflicted about this question. I genuinely am, because, knowing Chelsea as we do, being fans of the Premier League, their owners aren't exactly patient. Abramovich is not exactly patient when it comes to results from managers. But you just somehow feel that it's sort of different with Frank, and in this context of COVID, I think as well helps Frank's longevity, and clubs maybe might want to think twice about shaking things up as they would in normal times. So I think at this stage that he's seeing the season through.
I think he's definitely going to. I think it might have been one of my what are we calling it? Like your odd shout or your odd, like crazy prediction or whatever it was. I can't remember what it's called now.
Yeah.
Bold prediction. Thank you. Your crazy shout. Yeah, that one won't stick. But I think mine was that Lampard or Ole would get sacked in January, and I think now I think that is probably going to be too bold, and I think Lampard will at least last until the end of the season. But I guess the expectation is that if you're spending the amount of money that Chelsea just did in the transfer window, the expectation is that you're if you're not winning the Premier League, you're going damn bloody close. And I think Chelsea quite a ways off of being damn close to winning the Premier League this season. One key incident, though, that did come out of this one was another penalty shout, like we've had in a couple of the other matches overnight. This one was Maguire doing his best Hulk Hogan impersonation on Azpilicueta. I think did everyone just think that this should have been a penalty, including probably Maguire?
Yeah, choke slammed him.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't do that.
It's like we were talking about, not as egregious as the Ramos one, but whether Azpilicueta would have got his header on it or not, and it would have been a scoring chance. You can argue that, but technically it's a foul, and when we're not scoring goals, I'll take a penalty like that. Yeah, that would be great. Jorginho was on the field; he would have scored. So, but you can't do that, and Maguire's got to be conscious that there's like VAR and cameras and that sort of thing. So you can't get away with that anymore.
Yeah, it seems like one of those ones that I think you would expect the on-field referee to spot, and if they don't see it, you would expect that VAR would bring it back. So it's pretty bizarre, I guess, that that VAR didn't bring this one back, I think.
Maguire's he's just a big kid that, like, as soon as like the little kids start to run around him, just like uses his physicality and lashes out, isn't he? Like, just uses his sides to sort of run through everything, because since he's been under this big form cloud, he's made some seriously bad errors of judgment in these kind of things.
Was this like Hodor and Bran?
Wow. Someone's been watching Game of Thrones recently.
Yeah, Tommie's on a rewatch.
Yeah, I know.
There's been a few Game of Thrones references coming out lately, I know, in the group chat.
And then the other things in this game were Cavani nearly scoring with his first touch. and Thiago Silva making a block against him. So he looks like, for a guy that hasn't played competitive football since the league got shut down, that's pretty. Looked okay actually. I was surprised.
Yeah, he looked pretty sharp in his movement, and like obviously he was only on, I think, the pitch for about 25 minutes, but I guess it was some encouraging signs there, I thought, for Man United though, and Cavani. Mentioned what else was I going to say? Sorry,
Johnny Van Der Beek.
Oh yeah, so this was really weird. I don't think Van Der Beek even got on the pitch.
Yeah, he didn't.
Which Pogba's not exactly setting the world alight at the moment, and maybe Ole's trying to sort of
came on it.
He did, yeah. But he still didn't play particularly well. Like he didn't play badly as he has maybe recently. But this seemed like the kind of game where you would think that if you're not trying to play Pogba into form, you're throwing Donny on so that you can maybe get something out of the game. But it just didn't seem to be what Pogba was thinking. What Ole was thinking, right?
It seems.
Isn't Pogba supposed to be the guy who's changing the game?
Well, it seems. Yeah. It seems a bit odd to you because you've got, if you're going to play, McTominay and Fred, then you can only play Bruno Fernandes or Pogba. So that means Van Der Beek's behind those two, he's not going to get a game because Pogba was on the bench. So Ole's going to throw Pogba on. He's not going to throw Van Der Beek on.
I guess that's a good point. Is like I guess the shit had really hit the fan in the news if he brings on Donny and not Pogba, right? But everyone in the post-match was talking about this and pretty much saying, like, well, what was the point in buying Donny then? Like, you paid close to £40 million to bring this guy in from Ajax, and the Donny, like Van Der Beek, he's a gun, right? Like he's shown that he can do it for Ajax, and he was killing it in the Champions League last season. Like, well, what's the point? Like, what are Manchester United doing?
They bought him because they could. That's all. It's just a classic Man U signing. He was available. They didn't think about where he'd fit in their team, and they just bought him.
Classic career mode. It gets to the last day of the deadline. You still got a cool 40 million sitting in the bank. You don't really need any more players, but you just think, why not? Like,
they do need players, but they just bought another a midfielder that they didn't need. So yeah, it's a strange one. And unless it was like, well, Ole's like, well, we're playing against a decent side. I'm not going to have 2 or 3 attacking midfielders in. I want to be more solid at the back, but we'll see whether he actually gets games when they're playing against lesser opposition. But yeah, it doesn't look good for him.
What sort of occurs to me, I guess, even is that I know last season Pogba had a whole bunch of injury issues, and you almost wonder at this point if the best thing for Manchester United at this point is if Pogba actually gets injured, so that there's no pressure to play him.
Yeah, it would take the decision out of Ole's hands, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It takes the temptation away that, maybe I will start Pogba.
What about before the restart, like last season, boys? It was all about Pogba and Bruno, and we were just talking about how good they were together, and they could be the best midfield combination who has ever lived and ever walked the earth. And
yeah,
what happened to that?
Yeah, good question.
Don't think it was ever going to actually turn out to be reality, though, was it?
Look, I think, it was a bit weird that, it was a big game, and he went more. I guess he went more defensive in this sort of game. But I think for the most part he'll play Pogba and Bruno and McTominay or Matic or because that seems like the way he's gone with it. But
it did seem like
it still leaves no room for Van Der Beek again, as we sort of said. So it's odd.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on, though, fellas. Liverpool hosted Sheffield United in probably the last interesting game of the evening, though. It was a pretty wild start to the game with Ramsdale coming out and basically trying to close down Mane early on, but it didn't really come to anything. And Mane had a shot cleared off the line. Lundstrom then about 30 seconds later was leaving one in on Salah, and probably not what Liverpool will be wanting to seeing after having Alisson out for a couple of weeks and Virgil van Dijk out for quite a while as well. Last thing they want is Salah taking a big injury as well. And then Trent, he was trying to chip Ramsdale from halfway, and that was all in the first 2 minutes. Colby, did the rest of the game turn out to be as exciting as that, or?
No, it didn't. But it turned out to be tough work. Liverpool made it look really tough. Jesse often refers back to the pre-Virgil, pre-Allison days of watching
the
Liverpool
dark days,
and then being a pretty nervous watch. And look, I don't know if we're fully back to those days, because obviously Allison was rushed back. I don't know what they had to do to him to get him back so quick, but
it was probably a pincushion.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on in his body, what he's being held together by, but whatever. But we're not quite back to. I'm not quite back to shitting myself every time an opposition player gets at the top of the 18-yard box. But we're a nervous watch again. Got away with a tough win. I think Sheffield had lots of good chances, but couldn't quite find the final pass. Damo's just popped up in the chat and said, all caps, Sheffield United back on their bullshit. So Damo's still recovering from this morning's watch. Look, I actually think this game could have been a draw or a Sheffield United win. They were that vital pass away. They're creating a lot, but just that one creative pass away from a goal. And I also thought Liverpool's pressing game was a little bit off. I was surprised to see how well Sheffield were playing through Liverpool's press for large portions of this game. And then we had all the VAR drama as well. So,
Colby, is that because Liverpool played, I guess, their new big four up front instead of just the big three? We had Jota playing as well as Firmino, Mane, and Salah.
I don't know where Jota was playing. He was just going wherever he wanted.
He's in the free role.
I'm not playing up the front, but I'm not really playing in midfield. So all right, he was just like, it was him and Brewster for Sheffield were just wandering around the pitch for half of the game. But I mean, then Jota goes and scores the match winner. So and well taken goal it was. But for one part of the game, I just thought, what are these? This may as well be 10v10. These two are just happy to be here.
Oh dear. And you mentioned already, I guess, about Jota's winner, but prior to that, Firmino he helped himself to a home goal. It was a bit of a rarity these days, and also Fabinho, he helped himself to giving away a penalty as well, which obviously you mentioned about being a little bit nervous as well. Colby, you probably wouldn't want your standing centre back to be giving away penalties.
Was it a penalty or a free kick? That's my question.
I mean, I've watched this so many times post this game now. At the time of watching, I thought Liverpool were pretty hard done by. Did he get any of the ball? And what was the player over the line or not? Dubious, maybe not, maybe. But he shouldn't he also should really be doing that when you're defending someone in the box as well. Just sort of swipe. That's a midfielder's tackle playing as a centre back. That's a stop someone on the halfway line tackle. But
just forgot what part of the pitch he was on.
Yeah.
That's Tommie C defending there, I think. Look, I think from Sheffield United's perspective, like you mentioned before, Colby, that they're playing through the press pretty well, and I mean they actually scored in this game at least, albeit through a penalty, but still they ended up with nothing out of the game though, and I guess you really got to make sure that this that Sheffield United don't make too much of a habit out of this, of playing well and getting nothing from games. I guess I'm not sure if it's a rebalancing from last year where they were getting good results and probably getting sort of maybe the rub of the green where maybe they didn't necessarily deserve all 3 points. But I guess, do you think this is a little bit scary times for Sheffield United? We mentioned earlier about how we haven't played 10 games yet, but still these are habit-forming weeks.
Well, I think they haven't been the same since the restart. They haven't been picking up the points that they were back when the Premier League restarted the first time. So they'd be concerned that they're not picking up points in games where they would have last season. But I mean, watching the game, I always got the impression that Liverpool were going to score again. Like it just seemed like, with Salah, Mane, like they were having chances and it was just a matter of time, I thought. So, and Damo's questioning whether the fee that Liverpool recouped for Brewster was a bit of a steal. So I think it's a bit too early to judge, given he's still working his way into Sheffield United's system. But I think they'll that's it.
Need at least 10 games to tell if Bruce is trash or not.
Well, boys, the results should come for Sheffield. They're playing well. They've got a couple of easy fixtures. They've got City and Chelsea next before they have to work their way up to West Ham. So hopefully by that stage they can play themselves into a bit of form.
Yeah. Colby, anything else you want to say about Liverpool before we move on, though?
No.
Fair enough. Got the 3 points.
Oh, wait, I do. I lie. I do. That Salah goal, that Bergkamp-esque little touch and goal that was ruled out. My goodness. I was saying to Damo on the group chat this morning, there should be an exemption for he was clearly offside.
Wasn't there?
VAR did the job. He was clearly offside, but you should get a free hit for some of those. That was just delicious.
Yeah, Salah's just still looking so good. Like he's every time he shoots, I think he's going to score. So,
mate, if I got pinged before for making a reference to BAMford's goal being like Ronaldinho's goal against Chelsea in the Champions League a couple of years ago, then you can't make a Bergkamp reference about Salah.
Have another look at it.
Yeah, it was pretty nice.
To be fair, I don't remember the goal, or the disallowed goal, so I'll go back and have a look at it.
Yeah, it was very, very nice, and in those conditions as well to have a touch like that. Well,
the ball gets heavier when it's wet, doesn't
it? Easier. Is it easier, Tommie? Okay. maybe go check the goal out.
Yeah, he controlled it like a futsal ball. It was like glued to his foot.
Ooh. Yeah.
Colby needs to take a cold shower, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Fulham hosted Crystal Palace in the final game from last night, though. And Fulham really continued to struggle in what's a very winnable game against Palace. Palace went ahead very early through Riedewald, though, and then later consolidated their lead through Zaha. That second goal, Zaha's goal, though, was one that I'm surprised that doesn't happen more often in football, though, with Zaha sliding in at the back post and basically his shins colliding with the post. And I don't know how that doesn't happen more often, but it looked bloody painful. I didn't catch if Zaha went off injured or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's copping a bruise after that one.
I'll tell you who would have injured themselves on that. Grealish with those mini shin pads. He would have fucked himself up.
I thought you were going to make a reference maybe to Andy and how he probably would have missed from that sort of range.
Lovely.
Nah, all right. Look,
good
probably
more points for Palace. So I think they're pretty solid.
Palace just continue to get points and continue to be good when no one rates them.
And another loss for Fulham. So
yeah. In this game, boys, Fulham had 64% of the possession and pretty much couldn't do anything with it for 95 minutes until Tom Kearney ended up pulling one out of the bag, and that was a pretty nice goal actually. So, but still, like the fact that Fulham couldn't really create a hell of a lot, didn't create a hell of a lot of chances. I think I can't remember who was on the post match, but they were saying that a lot of the service into the Mitrovic was just poor, and I guess it looks pretty dire, I guess, for Fulham. Arnab, he wants to know, are Fulham, West Brom and Sheffield United primed for relegation already, or is it early days? George?
I think it's looking bad for Fulham. And West Brom. I don't know about Sheffield United just yet, but I worry about Fulham and West Brom.
Do you think? Do you think either of those two teams could be a shout for like the all time worst points total? Like are they that bad?
This was my bold prediction, Tommie. This is what I said in our preview. I predicted West Brom to get that, but at the moment it's looking more likely to be Fulham.
Maybe we could have two teams that set a new mark. That'd be really unreal.
I think Fulham have made a few signings and they're integrating like Lookman, Olaina, and a couple of others. So maybe there will be an improvement going forward. But at the moment, they're losing a lot of games. I
guess we saw last year with Daniel Farker Norwich that even though your team might be getting tonked week in, week out, you're not necessarily you may not necessarily lose your job. And I think a lot of us would have said that Parker or Bilic is likely to be the first one sacked. But follow-up question for you here, boys. Do you think Pep or Ole or Frank or even Chris Wilder could be in a shout for one of the first managers sacked?
Pep.
Stranger things have happened, George. Well, he's paying good money to get sacked first, so you could throw a few dollars on it.
Oh, but on the flip side of that, I don't think Parker or Bilic are probably going to get sacked just because their job is to work with what they've got essentially. So I think it would be a bit tough on them if, despite the results, unless it completely fell apart.
Yeah, I think out of either of those two teams, I think Bilic is the most likely one to stay the course for the whole season, just because they haven't spent any money. So I mean, what can you expect? But
and it'd be harsh on Wilder as well if he was to get sacked.
I don't think that's
what he's done with that team. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Anyway. All right, boys. Actually, there was one final thing from that game, which was there was also a red card laid on as well with Abubakar Kamara. He got sent off, and what was it? Abubakar Kamara? That's his name. I think he's like 6'5" striker that plays up front for Fulham. We really didn't pay much attention to this game, did we?
No.
But look. Really weird one. This one, it looked like he got sent off for like treading on the back of his on the back of a Palace player's leg, like on like the Achilles. But he seemed to not know a hell of a lot about it, and it didn't look very deliberate. I didn't think so. It seemed like a really strange one that he got sent off. Although you do see these types of things happen all the time, and players don't even get a yellow card or anything like that. So
the man's a giant, though. He probably couldn't see what was going on the ground. More than out there.
That's probably pretty accurate, I reckon. But yeah, that's pretty much the summary on that game, though. So, look, before we wrap up the show, there was a couple of Champions League games that were played midweek. Probably the pick of the results were Lazio doing one over Dortmund. Lazio got up 3-1. I believe Lazio aren't going particularly well in the league, so for them to step up in the Champions League is pretty good for them. PSG lost 2-1 to Manchester United, and it seemed like Manchester United left everything out on the pitch in Paris. Didn't really have much of a show for anyone watching overnight in their game against Chelsea. So that's, I guess, what happened with Man United. We've already talked very briefly already about Chelsea and Sevilla and how that finished 0-0. George, was this, I guess, did you... After watching this game against Sevilla, are you surprised that there was another 0-0 draw following up?
No, because it was against another decent team. So I think Frank sort of had the similar. The game panned out in a similar way where Chelsea looked solid at the back, but they just couldn't get anything going forward. So I think Frank's got to work on the actual attacking play now with our solid base at the back. So. And that might be integrating Ziyech into the starting lineup because he's been moving Pulisic and Havertz around and tweaking the midfield. So I think there's got to be something worked on in terms of who's going to play in the front three and who's going to play attacking midfield, and then get them actually working on the field together, because there's been too many changes and there's no sort of rhythm going forward.
Yeah, it's a good point about their lack of rhythm at the moment. Do you think he needed to sort of settle on a bit of a first choice 11 and then just kind of build rhythm from there? And then
but he couldn't though. He couldn't because there were so many injuries and people were coming in late and that sort of thing. So now everyone's back and fit. Then now maybe he can start working on it. Yeah.
But I guess like now we're like a month or 6 weeks into the season, and he's only just now he's starting to pick like his team, I guess, and rather than continuing to choose the players that he had at his disposal at the beginning of the season when some of those players weren't fit and they were actually getting good results as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think he probably could have fallen back a little bit on last year's team at the start of the season when when Havertz had been training for 4 days and he threw him in starting lineup, that sort of thing. that might have not been the best strategy, but the more games they play in the Premier League and the more games they play together, the better they're going to be. So I just, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Fair enough. Last one I want to mention was Real Madrid losing unexpectedly to Shakhtar, and this was probably the result of the round in terms of like the biggest upset. Pretty wild result for the Ukrainian side there.
And then in that game, had the Real Madrid actually scored. Valverde scored in like the last minute to make it 3-3, and VAR called the goal back because it was one of those ones where I think it was after a corner, and there were a couple of Real Madrid players standing in front of the goalkeeper, not interfering with play, but as the shot went in, it clearly blocked the keeper's view, and so they had to call it back. But it was a pretty wild finish. But Real Madrid was so shit in the first half. And half of Shakhtar's team were out with COVID pretty much, or I think 13 members of their squad or something like that. So
really, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. So it was a Shakhtar B team, and they still came out and smashed Real Madrid. So there you go.
Oh, very good. All right. The one final thing I want to mention before we wrap things up was there are a couple of Australians that were playing in the Europa League and the Champions League as well. You had Tommie Rogic, who got on for Celtic. You had James Holland, who got in the Europa League for, I think it's the LASK, the Austrian side. And of course, Owen Mobile got on for Midtjylland as well in the Champions League as well. So it's good that we've got a couple of Aussies that are playing, I guess, at the highest level. Don't have a lot of Aussies playing in those top leagues. So the fact that they're playing in Europa League and Champions League, even if they're at sort of maybe second tier leagues, the fact that they're still playing at a good level is good. There was one bad thing though, is that those three players lost by a combined goal aggregate of 10-1. So
all great results for the boys.
Not great, but I mean, at least they're there.
Boys, other than Matty Ryan, is Owen Mobile sort of our Socceroo who's playing at pretty much the highest level at the moment? I'm struggling to think of anyone else who's really playing at a higher level. Or maybe if you count a couple of guys who are playing in the championship, I don't know.
Well, you've got at least Rogic wasn't Rogic supposed to sign for a Qatar team or something like that? So at least he's stuck in Scotland, and he's back, coming off the bench. So I think that's better for him than going to Qatar.
So I think though, like for all the Aussies, it's basically like Matty Ryan playing in a top league, and that's it.
I think Leckie and Borrello are in the Bundesliga.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think Leckie's back. He was, a couple of weeks ago he was on the bench, and I think he played it in the Hertha's first game of the season as well. So I think he's sort of worked his way back in favour there before he got injured. So I haven't checked on Borrello of late, but. So,
I have a feeling that Borrello got loaned out to like the Bundesliga 2. But
I think it's probably Matt Leckie, Cole.
So Leckie was named on the bench overnight for Hertha against RB Leipzig. And the good thing about that is that previously he wasn't even making the bench. That's a minor consolation, I guess, because I think he'd fallen out with the club, and the club were trying to get rid of him. But then I think that manager got sacked.
Yeah, it was Klinsmann came in, and then a new manager came in after Klinsmann, and he wasn't getting a game. And then I think at the start of this season, he was he's made it back into the first team squad, and he did start I think in the first game of the season. So.
Before COVID, he was. I heard him interviewed on the Fox podcast, I think, and they were like, it was like Leckie. It was like he was not giving anything away, but it really sounded like he was in talks, at least with Adelaide, to come back to the A League before COVID happened, when he was really out of favour. But
he's turned it around.
Yeah,
I think he's
he's played a couple of games for Hertha, and something I didn't realise was that Hertha are in Europa League as well, and Leckie he's had a couple of appearances in Europa League as well. So that's good. That's good too.
So there you go. There's your answer. There's your answer. We found it, but we found it.
All right. That pretty much wraps things up for this week, though. Thanks for tuning in. Obviously, we'll have this uploaded as a podcast in the next 24 hours or so. But in the meantime, though, we'll catch up with everyone next week with plenty more Premier League, and I think there's another round of Champions League on this week as well. So plenty more football for us to talk about. But in the meantime, Enjoy the football.